Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Those who are in the hall, I request you to kindly come forward and take up your seats, please. Those who are sitting at the back, they can come forward and take up the seats, please. Thank you.
There is an urgent need to address critical global challenges like climate change, food security, equitable and sustainable growth, energy security, rising inflation, besides others. The G20 being a strategic multilateral platform connecting the world's major developed and emerging economies has a critical role to play in addressing these challenges and holds a strategic role in securing future global economic growth and prosperity, collectively accounting for 85% of the global GDP, 75% of international trade and 2/3 of the world population, making it the premier forum for international economic cooperation. B20, poised for action. The need is to shape up our economies and society in a more resilient, inclusive and sustainable way. The Business 20 Merchant Group, or B20, has a key role to play in this regard under the tutelage of overall G20 agenda. Amongst the various engagement groups under G20, the business group represented by B20 is one of the most prominent ones. Established in 2010, the B20 leads the process of galvanizing global business leaders for their views on issues of global economic and trade governance, and speaks in a single voice for the entire G20 business community, with an average of 1,000 delegates from G20 countries, including top executives from leading multinational corporations. B20 accounts for around 2,000 participants, representing over 6.5 million businesses. Destination India. India has taken over the G20 presidency in December 2022. Being the fifth largest economy in the world and one of the world's most prominent emerging markets, India is home to around 1.4 billion consumers, 63.39 million MSMEs and 104 unicorns, boasting rapid digital growth and sustainable development. The country has become the center of attraction at the global stage, attracting many global business majors for strategic investments owing to the presence of a vast range of industries, investment avenues and supportive government. India is in a demographic dividend phase with a significantly large young population, which is a strong driver for demand and an ample source of manpower. Truly a land of opportunities with diversified culture and a rich history to learn from. The Confederation of Indian Industry, or CII, is privileged to be appointed as the B20 India Secretariat under India's G20 presidency. A shared and inclusive future. B20 India seeks to gather inputs from G20 business communities to address global issues through connected and collaborative efforts in all aspects of the.
Welcome everyone. This is the Plenary 3, Redefining the Global Digital Corporation, a call for action. And we have some very good and eminent speakers for this particular session. Mr. Rajesh Gopinathan, Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director, TCS Limited. Ms. Quinn Simon, Head of Public Policy, APAC, Amazon Web Services. Mr. Ashwin Yardi, Chief Executive Officer, Capgemini India. Mr. Ankit Agarwal, Managing Director, Sterlite Technologies Limited. Ms. Roshni Nadar, Chairperson, HCL Technologies Limited.
Let me introduce the panel. Take a minute and introduce. Thank you everyone for joining us. We very appreciate all of you coming in after lunch. It's a tough session, the most difficult session always in any conference. But on the other hand, since we're going to talk about global cooperation, it is best done on a full stomach. So I suppose we will take it for that. Let me quickly introduce the panel that we have here. Mr. Alkesh Sharma, who's Secretary, Ministry of Electronics and IT, Government of India. Mr. Sharma has a very distinguished background. Some of the interesting areas that I was particularly felt that would be very key to many of the deliberations here. He was CEO and Managing Director of the National Industrial Corridor Development Corporation Limited and played a key part along with our current Sherpa, Mr. Amitabh Kant, in laying out the development and integrated development of the whole corridor policy. Many of the learnings from that, I'm sure, will carry forward into the digital economy also. Similarly, he was chairman of the Indian Highways Management Corporation. More importantly, one of the most well-implemented solutions there was what we call the FASTag solution, which in a matter of less than a year completely digitized goods movement across the vast highway network of India. And that turned into a multiplier effect in terms of many areas where that data is getting used. And more recently, Mr. Sharma has been appointed into the United Nations Internet Governance Forum, and so is well versed with all the various international bodies that are involved in it. Then on my left, we have Mr. Mohan Reddy, one of the key architects of India's IT revolution, most especially in the engineering services side. He is founder and chairman of Scient, which most of us still know of as Infotech Enterprises. And he has been a key architect of many of the things that Indian IT has done. Also as chairman of NASSCOM from 2015 and 16. He's been on the he's chairman of the board of governors of IIT Hyderabad and IIT Roorkee. So very keenly involved in the education setup. Mr. Mohan also received the Padma Shri, India's 4th highest civilian award in 2017. It's a pleasure having you with us. Then joining us virtually is Ms. Roshni Nadar. She is chairperson of HCL Tech, a leading global technology organization with a market cap of 34 billion, one of the top 3 companies in the country. Roshni is also the chairperson and driving force behind Vidya Gyan, a leadership academy for the economically underprivileged and meritorious rural students. Roshni has also received several honors, including being featured for the 6th consecutive year in the world's 100 most powerful women's list. Roshni, thank you very much for joining us. Then we have Mr. Ashwin Yarti, Ashwin, who's CEO of Capgemini Technology Services India. He has been involved in several business transformation programs and is well versed in the application of technology for business transformation. Finally, we have Ms. Quint Simon. She serves as head of public policy for APAC for Amazon Web Services and has deep expertise in cross-border data flows, cybersecurity, privacy, data protection, and digital trade. She has also been quite actively involved in the last B20, G20 deliberations in Indonesia, and we look forward to hearing of her experiences there. And finally, Mr. Ankit Agrawal, who's managing director at Sterling Tech. He's also been awarded by Economic Times and Business World as Disrupts 40 Under 40 Business Leader. So we are looking forward to hearing from you, Ankit. So it's a diverse panel with expertise across services, technology, policy, and governance. And the topic that we have today is about how to drive global cooperation in the digital era. It's a space that has been very eloquently spoken about in the morning session by many of our ministers. And in fact, we were wondering as to what we can add on to that. We will try our best to try and take that conversation forward. Without much ado, let me invite Mr. Sharma for his opening comments.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Rajesh Gopinath, distinguished panelists, delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a matter of great privilege for me to be here this afternoon on this afternoon session on redefining global digital cooperation, a call for action. Now, one thing we all know that world recognizes that digital economy can be a key driving force for innovation, inclusion, and sustainability. I think in the morning session, we have seen almost all speakers in the inception session speaking about digital transformation, digital economy, digitalization. And in India, of course, now we'll look at that both public and private sector have shifted dramatically towards digital ways of working and thinking. In India's G20 presidency, we in the digital transformation, we are looking at global digital economy should become a means for facilitating innovation and public service delivery in a secure cyber environment through a future-ready, digitally skilled workforce. So these are the 3 priorities as far as India is concerned. We are looking at digital public goods, how we can share it with the world, what India has developed. We are looking at how we could create a secure cyber environment, and also we should ensure that we should be able to bridge the digital divide. And that is where we need to create basic to advanced skills in digital for the digitally skilled workforce. I think technology can be a great equalizer. As ITU's latest report says that almost 2.9 billion people of the world suffer from digital divide. I think India has to take from here in this G20 presidency and make sure that this digital divide should be minimized, reduced, and we create an equal, equitable, equal society. In India, we have taken this decision, as was told in the morning, in 2015, when Digital India program was launched by Honorable Prime Minister. The whole idea was that we should create a vision to transform India into a digitally empowered society and a knowledge-based economy by ensuring digital access, digital inclusion, digital empowerment, and bridging the digital divide by leveraging cost-effective technology-based solutions. India's tech, we talked about it in the morning, is an orchestration of this digital transformation in India. It is a set of API-driven services and products that are built on top of the existing digital infrastructure of the country. It's a great model of public-private partnership. It was mentioned in the morning, so I don't want to talk about it in detail here, but I think I would like to take us to the next level where India, when we assume the G2 presidency, what is that India has taken upon itself and what are the strategy India has adopted in order to create these digital public platforms, and how do we make digitalization a way of life, a mode of service delivery. It should create not only ease of doing business, but it should also lead to ease of living for India's citizens and for the citizens of the world. I think we have adopted a six-pronged strategy where we are looking at the first part of that is digital government. We are saying that digital first, whole of government approach, and end-to-end digital delivery of services. That is the motto of the government. We are coming out with policy reforms. There is a digital government policy, and there is a national data governance policy, whereby the data, we generate a humongous quantum of data. It should be actually used for planning, decision-making, and for better service delivery. Connecting all Indians, connecting the world at large. I think we are creating a network of BharatNet, which is a fiber-based network. We have already connected, the plan is to connect 675,000 villages of India. Almost nearly 600,000 villages have been connected. And the whole, every village habitation of India will be connected by some means of connectivity in next 443 days. I think that is the target which has been given to us by the government. 5G is the new innovation which has just been launched. We are looking at that. We have developed telecom stack, which will again lead to a new level of technology development. We are enhancing the network of ISPs. So the whole idea is that connectivity has to be there. And not only we are limiting it to that, we are also coming out the National Language Translation Mission, Digital India Bhashini. We are also going to connect the people who cannot understand English, because most of the communication on internet has been in English. We are creating a multilingual platform where people of India, 22 are Indian languages, they could speak to any of those languages and they could connect. That is the connectivity to each and every Indian. The third one is we have to create modern digital laws which are based on the principles of simplicity, the principles of ease of living business. Our digital public personal data protection bill is under consultation. It is in the final stage. We have got a lot of good comments and there is a lot of positive feedback on that. We are also coming out with a Digital India Act which will actually replace the IT Act of 2000. That is again a big thing which we are doing. We will soon be coming out for consultation on that. The cyber security strategy in the final stage. We also have to ensure that it's not only the endpoint security but the complete service security, that everybody has to be secured and they should maintain their privacy and data protection. The fourth pillar which we are looking at is digital economy, where we are looking at that India has to move from a service nation to a product nation. A lot of new schemes have been initiated. Our production-linked incentive scheme, PLI, has actually created a buzz in the market. Our mobile manufacturing has gone to the next level. We are not only making it in India, but Apple is exporting from India. And I think the December figure we just got, that they have exported 1 billion worth of mobile phones. So we are looking at this, creating hardware, semiconductor, electrical, all that has to be done. SaaS, IS, all these facilities have to be created. And digitize MSMEs so that the digital economy's last pillar, the SME sector also will be fully digitized. We have almost 800 million of them in various forms, so they all have to be doing. Startups is another culture. It was talked about in the morning. They are the one who will be creating a next level of innovation for us using AI as means and all other technology. So the fifth pillar of our approach in India would be emerging technologies will be the new focus, where we are doing a lot of R&D on deep technology, AI, ML, AR, VR, Web3 technologies. RISC-V program is already on the advanced stage. 5G, of course, I have talked about. Supercomputing and quantum computing mission. We have also created quite a 20 petaflop capacity, which has been now set up in many of our IITs and research institutions. So emerging technology is the new next level of fifth pillar of us. And the sixth pillar where government is going to work actively is to make India a talent nation. Right from basic to advanced deep tech skills, we are creating a network. The skills in emerging technologies have to be created. We have launched a Chips to Startup program where 100 universities and IITs have been connected so that they create high level of skills at bachelor's, at master's, and the PhD level, so that they become industry-ready force to take India to the next level of deep technology. We are also building our institutional capacities that will also take us to the next level of technology development and the skill development, so that India builds the skills not for India, but we should be able to export skills and use those skilled manpower if needed. When we are sharing our digital public infrastructure to the world at large, we would be happy to also share the technical manpower, the skilled manpower who will be able to go and implement there. Now, looking at India's focus on that, we are saying that the global digital cooperation calls for action from all quarters. We all have to work together, whether it is government, business, academia, civil society, and common citizens. We all have to work together. We have seen this success in India's tech, and we would like global cooperation to take India's tech solutions to all other interested countries, and we would also like to learn from these countries if there is any digital paradigm shift that is taking place in those countries. So it's a win-win situation. We would like to cooperate with each other and take a lot of learning from the countries who have done that, and we would be willing to share our learnings from them. To conclude, I would emphasize that the strengthened technological cooperation among G20 members and industry partners through transfer of technology and capacity building is the key to deliver on our promises of what we talked in the morning about those 5 pillars of B20, RAGE. I think that will take us to that next level of RAGE and to sustainable development. I would like to thank all my friends and each one of you who have been here to listen to us, and we welcome you back in India, and we would like to see more of you in the coming days. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma. That's a very comprehensive plate that you laid in front, and going ahead from in the morning, the digital infrastructure that you spoke about, extending that to the policy frameworks, which could also form very interesting starting points for many other countries that are at the early stage of their journey. Now can I request Mr. Mohan to share his comments.
Thank you, Rajesh, and good afternoon to all of you. The topic for this panel today is redefining the global digital cooperation. And certainly in the morning, all of you heard how pivotal India has become in the digital world. It's a phenomenal story of what we saw the course of less than 10 years, the transformation of India into the digital world, whether it's economy, industry, every facet of our lives. We have as many as 1.2 billion people using phones. As many as 750 million of them have smartphones with them. We have about $1.6 trillion worth of transactions being done. It's an amazing story that we have. Added to that, we also have a fairly large amount of business reforms that have happened. The minister talked about Gati Shakti program in the morning. There is the ONDC, the National Logistics Policy, and e-rupee is the recent one that they have done. So in this environment, this could be a great forum for us to debate, because the changes that are happening are led by the business and they're governed by the government. So therefore, to me, it is important that we all debate on what should be the future as how the digital will grow and glow in years to come. The first one that I talk about is in the fast changing world, it becomes extremely important for us to have all the stakeholders, multiple stakeholders involved in making sure that we get frameworks in place for both standards as well as security. It cannot be a one-way street what the industry requires or what the government thinks that this is the bet for the regulation. But I think in an environment of that nature, what is likely to happen is that we will find that innovation does not get inhibited. Over-regulation will only end up in making sure that we wouldn't have innovation, and innovation is a key driver for all of us to see more amount of fruits to be born from the digital world. And we're not talking about digital being isolated in countries. It has to be globalized. That's what the topic also says. It says global digital cooperation. So if some of the countries are ahead, some of the countries are far behind. Some of them have some extraordinary security regimes at this point of time. Some of them do not even have any of those. But all of them have to work together. So we need to move more into a mode where there is certain amount of standardization, and the security protection also has to be common denominator between all the countries together. So I think that is something which is very important for all of us to openly debate on what should be that common denominator to make sure it can't be over-regulated environment for all of us to get scuttled and not do business with each other. We've known instances where, because of some of the regulations that are there, in some of the countries it becomes extremely difficult to do. So I think that should not be the case, because if truly we believe in terms of globalization, the digital standardization is very important. The security systems are also important. My last point I'd like to make is all about inclusivity. Inclusivity, I think Mr. Sharma called out a few of them, is MSME inclusivity that has to be there, the divide between the digital divide between the rich and the poor, and so on and so forth. I think that is extremely important to make sure that this has a holistic acceptance for the whole world. Otherwise, there'll be bigger divide that will come by if we neglect people. In COVID days, we've seen a fairly large amount of divide. But India has come forward with a number of innovative solutions to make sure that we bridge this divide. Or we have also found something else further, is the digital transformation is just about, say, 10 years old. So what happens to people who are already in the workforce for the last 20 years? Or even for that matter, an adult illiterate also has to use the digital networks at this point of time. So I think India came out with a very innovative mission called the National Digital Literacy Mission, whereby they are now educating people between 16 and 60 years in schools after the school hours to make sure they also become digitally literate. So therefore, I think the third point I'd like to make is inclusivity is very critical to get wholesome acceptance of this digital globalization. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reddy. And again, I think the common themes keep resonating: standard, security, inclusivity, education, skilling. I suppose that's very similar to what we've been hearing in the morning also, and only reaffirms the criticality of it. Can I call upon Ankit to share your thoughts?
Can you just start the slide? Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, thank you, Rajesh, and all my panelists for the opportunity. So I'm Ankit from Sterlite Technologies. I represent part of the Sterlite Vedanta group. And really at the core of what I'd like to touch upon is really as part of this digital cooperation, what I firmly believe is at the core will be to create the right digital infrastructure to enable all of that to happen. I think India is in a very, very unique and positive position to enable that. But I think a lot of learnings that we are experiencing and will experience in the next 3 to 4 years can be applicable to the other 20 countries, other 19 countries that we're part of. Next slide, please. So since we're in the business of data, I thought I'll share a few data points as we go through the slides. I do promise to be within the 4 minutes. So just some examples. I think one is very clearly a very interesting example of just the impact of free Wi-Fi we saw, where very quickly you were able to find meaningful jobs for 80 people, in one case. Another case, by just applying and embedding QR codes in textbooks, you were able to create education for rural kids. So these are just examples of things that are just happening by itself almost now by the impact of creating and providing digital connectivity in the remotest parts of India. Next slide, please. So the numbers are clearly quite telling. What you can see is that we now have a massive amount of YouTube users in India, close to 500 million users. We touched upon it being in various languages. That's clearly something that's proliferating now. We touched upon the online transactions. I think the online learners is something that's massive. If you speak to LinkedIn or you speak to any of the global platforms, when we are now the largest online learning country in the world. And so that's something that's extremely exciting. In my own view, that number needs to be at least 10 times of this. And clearly that's the work that's cut out for us. Next slide, please. So I think the maths is quite simple. I think our Minister Piyush Goyal talked about, what does it all translate to? And I think the investment in the digital economy for all the countries will really be a ratio of 1 to 20. For every dollar spent in creating the digital economy, there'll be a 20x return for the economy. And all of this typically happens within a 3 to 5 year period. Next slide. So the good thing is that at least some of the countries are clearly on the path forward. Just shared some examples. Essentially about $130 billion investment in South Korea will need to almost a $236 billion immediate translation economic value and about 90 million jobs. In the Gulf countries, it'll impact GDP by almost $255 billion. And across the board, we've seen massive investments by European telecom operators. And again, that's creating almost 1.5 billion extra jobs. So you clearly see very massive output as impact of the digital investment. Next slide, please. So just some interesting data points on India. So while we clearly are very proud of, so we have the highest data consumption in the world, we have amongst the lowest cost per GB in the world. I think still some work cut out for us in terms of mobile speeds. That's something that clearly now with the advent of 5G in India, I do expect that to pick up rapidly. The one on the right is clearly, I would say, one important message to take away and also for the other countries to think about. When you look at fiber to the home, that's absolutely critical. That's got further accelerated in terms of demand because of COVID. We're still at about 6-7% in India, while some of the emerging countries are already at 70 to 80%. So I think that's going to be absolutely critical. Some of the initiatives our minister talked about in terms of BharatNet, I think that's going to be absolutely important to really make sure that we have wide-scale adoption of fiber. And the reason I say that is it's not just the basic application that you can do on low bandwidth. If you really have to get to high bandwidth applications north of 100 Mbps, you really need fiber to the home. And I think the last thing at the bottom is at the core of the digital infrastructure is ensuring a very robust network of fiber optics. I can't emphasize this enough. We've done a mapping of every major country, and we've looked at the mapping of the fiber optics to the GDP in that country. And I think it's quite important to note here that currently with the average of between 2 to 2.5 in US and China, India today is at 0.2. Again, some of the massive initiatives with operators like Jio, Airtel, BharatNet, all of that coming through. We do expect this to rise significantly in the next 4 to 5 years. Next slide, please. So I think this is really the 3 points I wanted to kind of summarize with. One is we need a massive investment. I think there were discussions of even, can we look at alternate sources of funding? Now you also have private equity, you have World Bank, you have government, everyone stepping in. But this is clearly very critical for countries to step forward and make this happen. There are some amazing learnings in India of how we've got maximum bang for the buck, and I think that can be a great learning. The second part is training people on digital skills. I think this is just something that is very important. Today, 50% of India's skilled manpower is essentially, India's manpower is deployed in agriculture, and that has to rapidly move towards creating new jobs, and digital skills will be critical for that. And the last part is providing enabling services. So I think on the back of BharatNet, which will be to connect 6 lakh villages in India, I think it'll be important to have digital kiosks and other services so you can really ensure that healthcare, education, and other government services can be facilitated. Next slide. So we've played our part at STL. I won't do an STL marketing pitch here, but we're very proud of really enabling millions of people to be connected in rural parts of India. We're also creating an extremely robust defense network for the Indian Army and Indian Navy, which all is something that is very, very critical. We talk about the average, the citizens of our countries, but equally a robust digital network is required for our defense forces. Next slide, please. Next slide. So that's just one last slide I'll leave you with, is an actual visual of what we're trying to bring. I think this is again something that I can easily see across Latin America, Africa, parts of Indonesia, and Southeast Asia, where in addition to just taking the broadband infrastructure, if you really want to create an ecosystem and the digital cooperation we're talking about, I think an ecosystem will be enabled by kiosks like this at the last mile. So this is something that we've now implemented in villages across India and would love to discuss more if possible. Next slide. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ankit. Can I call upon Ms. Quint Simon now? Please share your thoughts.
Thank you very much. It is a true honor to be here at the B20 India Inception meeting. I would be remiss to not start by thanking the organizers for locating this auspicious event here. It gave me an opportunity over the weekend to explore a little of the state and get a small taste of the spirit of entrepreneurialism that Gujarat is so world famous for. At Davos last week, there was a big focus on this concept of a polycrisis, or this idea that we face an interlocking set of crises, whether it's stagnating productivity or rising cost of living, income inequality, or, of course, climate change. But what heartened us at Amazon Web Services was the increasing recognition that digitization and collaboration are going to be two pillars for really cooperating together to mitigate the worst effects of some of these crises. And that is why we are so proud to support the B20 in India this year under the G20 theme of One Earth, One Family, One Future. At AWS, we have a unique vantage point. We operate a global cloud services, and in that context, we operate across almost every G20 country, and are able to see firsthand the impact of pro-business regulation and also the devastating impact of overburdensome regulations that is not principles-based or risk-based. We also see the benefit of harmonization between policies where possible. At AWS, we also get to work across sectors of the economy. We're proud to work with the government of India here on digital public goods, but we also get to see the digitization in sectors ranging from financial services to healthcare, manufacturing, small and medium businesses. And with that, we do get to see the digitization happening across the economy. AWS participated as a co-chair of the Digitization Task Force in Indonesia last year, where we had the opportunity to share our views on issues ranging from bridging the rural-urban divide, financial and digital inclusion, and ultimately two themes that I want to touch on today, which are digital trust and digital skilling. Our strong recommendation to the G20 is to take these two themes as areas where we can build on the work from Indonesia last year. A speaker earlier today referred to digital trust as the currency of the digital economy. There are still discussions globally around what do we really mean by digital trust and how do we establish consensus around it. With the G20 representing 60% of the world's population and 75% of the world's trade, this is really where we need to establish the pillars of digital trust. And we would offer a few actionable recommendations that we think government and society can take forward. The first is really to understand how each player in the ecosystem or digital value chain can contribute to uplifting digital trust. Not every player in the ecosystem can or should have the same responsibilities or the same role. But every part of that digital ecosystem should be identified, and every part of that sector or every part of that value chain should offer innovative ideas for how to uplift digital trust. For us at AWS, industry-led ideas are very important. So we were proud to be a founding member, for example, of the Trusted Cloud Principles, which really outline our commitments to how cloud should be used and adopted in a responsible manner, recognizing people's basic rights as they move to digitize and adopt cloud services. But we do think it is very important for government to play a role in identifying these various aspects of the value chain and working with industry to really upskill and up-level the digital trust within each element. The other piece that I would touch on as well is the invest in ways that ultimately don't really contribute to the overall innovative ecosystem that a country can have. Data localization or data residency mandates, we have seen across the world, and more research is backing the point that data residency really does impact the innovative potential of economies and ultimately doesn't address some of the very legitimate goals that governments have around cybersecurity, citizen privacy, and ultimately national security as well. The business community has many ideas, I think, to offer on how these core and very legitimate concepts can be addressed, whether it's cybersecurity training or working on standards, as a previous panelist spoke on, or working together to upskill on digital skills. And that will bring me to my final point today. There was a recent study by RAND in Europe that found that the digital skills gap, if we're not able to bridge that, that could cost the G20 economies 11.5 trillion in global trade. That's an incredible number. But unfortunately, as it is today, there is a gap between supply and demand with respect to digital skills. And I think this is an area where we could have concrete outcomes during India's G20 and B20 year. In particular, industry and AWS would love to work with government to figure out a way to make learning a lifelong pursuit, to make skills become a matter of hours rather than years of education, to enable people to get certified in new skills quickly and in ways that are recognized by government. Really ensuring that these digital skills become an integral part of every individual's journey, every individual's growth, will ensure that we can plug that digital skills gap faster. And fundamentally, we'll have a huge outcome on productivity. Alpha Beta and AWS did a study last year that found that 86% of tech workers and 88% of non-tech workers were able to increase their productivity when they adapted and learned new digital skills. So I would just conclude by reiterating that digital trust and digital skills are the two areas where we see tremendous potential to build on Indonesia's B20 year and to identify actionable areas where governments, business, society, and individuals can work together for the success of India's ambitions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Simon. And nicely wrapped up, as you said, on digital trust, skilling. These are areas that probably can form the early stage of cooperation where there can hardly be any difference of opinion. And we build that collective trust to work on some of the more difficult ones like data localization, data sovereignty, etc., where we'll need further talk and discussions till we can find a common solution. But thank you for sharing your thoughts. Can I call upon you, Roshni, now to share your thoughts?
Thank you, Rajesh, and distinguished panelists. I'm both excited as well as honored to be a part of the prestigious B20 forum in the company of business leaders, technocrats, change makers, civil society, policymakers, and experts from across India and the world. According to the World Economic Forum, I think this number was mentioned before as well, as of 2022, there are almost 2.9 billion people who are unable to augment benefits of online engagements due to the rampant global digital divide. There are skill gaps as per the demand and supply of the digitally trained workforce across critical segments like healthcare, transport, logistics, education, financial inclusion, agriculture, IT, just to name a few. These are segments that can pull off businesses as well as unemployment across multiple income and age demographics. As per some statistics, 47% of the total world population does not have access to high-speed broadband. High-speed broadband is an important criterion for someone to join in the digitally skilled workforce and contribute to the growing inclusive societies. The United Nations has set a target that by 2023, the broadband internet user penetration should reach 75% worldwide. This translates to 6 billion people globally. Operators and infrastructure providers have invested trillions of dollars over the past 20 years to create the digital infrastructure coverage and capacity required to sustain lifestyles during the pandemic and post. However, there remains a divide in access to high-speed fixed and mobile connectivity. Even amongst fixed broadband subscribers, many do not get sufficient speeds for effective remote work, telemedicine, and education, including in developed countries. Beyond coverage, there is a bigger divide in adoption where those with coverage may not use internet due to lack of affordability, digital skills, or relevant content in the local language. Today, I would like to draw your attention to affordability and digital literacy. Beyond availability of infrastructure, a wide affordability gap continues to exist, driving a usage gap between penetration and coverage. In low-income countries, a monthly broadband subscription costs 12% of the gross national income, far higher than the UN target of less than 2% by 2025. Similarly, the cost of good and effective smartphone represents more than 1.2 months' wages in these low-income countries, and at least 3 to 4 times that for laptops, which is becoming one of the largest barriers to internet adoption, even where coverage exists. Together, we must create a financing framework to continue to bridge this affordability gap. The good news is that devices and connectivity technologies continue to get better and more cost-effective. A good financing framework will ensure closing this digital divide at speed and provide access even to the most underserved demographics. As we continue to close the affordability gap, which will continue to increase more usage of high-speed broadband, we can expect further access and rise in digital literacy and digital upscaling at a mass scale. The pandemic fastened digitization to become pervasive in all aspects of life. More and more individuals and businesses are expected to conduct key activities online, thus shifting consumer habits to more virtual lifestyle and increasing reliance on technology and connectivity. Education too must keep up. If we consider India, which has the greatest youth population in the world and ages 13 to 35 make up over 40% of the Indian population, these are digital natives, and the earlier they are introduced to digital literacy, the stronger will be their participation in economic growth. Hence, my second suggestion is, together we must create a digital literacy framework to start with a digital curriculum that starts as early as schools, digital training to teachers and assessment training, literacy across genders, women specifically, who have fallen even more out of the workplace since the pandemic. Not all girls go into STEM, so the digital literacy has to start much earlier at schools, demographics and across vernaculars. A standardized framework which is constantly updated in response to newer technologies, skills demand, and can be incorporated in any national education framework. The world can greatly benefit from India's success story in digital financial inclusion, where we have created a uniquely historic case study of UPIs that has empowered both the urban and rural populations equitably. There also lies challenges, and to address those, the global enterprises must comply with a host of different regulations in various parts of the world. Working within regulations is a crucial step in effective and successful digital transformation. Finally, there can be no model that fits all, but I think that financing framework and a digital literacy framework which starts as early as schools, perhaps even grade 1 onwards, is important as we look at a call for action and digital cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you, Roshni. And thank you for putting the affordability gap on the table for discussion. That brings what India has achieved into even greater focus in terms of being able to harness very scarce resources and being able to actually drive the digital agenda. And Mr. Mohan Reddy had spoken earlier about the National Digital Learning Mission and how that has been integrated with our new education policy, and including teacher skilling. So that's a critical framework that could also probably be seen for its applicability in other environments. Now can I call upon Ashwin to share your thoughts, Ashwin?
Thanks. So first of all, I would like to call this is a period of what I say as indigenization. Why? Because this is about industrial revolution, leveraging digital transformation. So that's what indigenization is all about. Incidentally, it's also about India leading the digitization. So that also plays well into it. We have heard many use cases looking at the current situation and what we've experienced last 2 or 3 years. I would say there are a couple of areas where we have great success stories, and we didn't talk a lot about it during the day. I think the 2 areas where there is a great opportunity for India to collaborate and build upon is first on healthcare. We've seen what's happened during the pandemic. Clearly reaching medical services to the last mile has been a challenge. Also finding vaccines or finding solutions to complex problem has been challenge. In India, we've had a very good case studies where Apollo itself has worked very closely in East Khasi. Now East Khasi has unfortunate situation where it has one of the highest cancer patients. Working closely, Apollo Hospitals has now actually built solutions leveraging AI, data, and other technologies to really find solutions to the oncology problem. I think oncology or similar solutions are challenged globally around the world. During COVID, what we also saw is how we could actually take digital healthcare to the remotest of village. Incidentally, we were partnering with some startups which were involved in doing a digital dispensary sitting out of Mumbai to talukas in Bid and interior of Maharashtra. I'm pretty sure, especially with our focus, our action group on Africa and many other places, taking medicine to the remotest of village is something which India could actually take to the world. The second area which has been global priority, all the more with the economic and geopolitical situation, is food security. Again, if you look at the work which has been done across states, just to give you context, today 130 million Indian population works directly or indirectly in agriculture. And just improving 10% productivity could lead to almost $65 billion of improvement to the GDP. Already work has been done leveraging, again, AI, geospatial technologies, and also other new technologies, including drone mapping, to create solutions. And these solutions are now being leveraged in areas like Marathwada, Gujarat, or interior of India to improve cotton farming. The yields have improved by 10 to 15%. And this is just one example of how India is also investing a lot in food security, also including using AI to improve or reduce the food wastage. By using some of these technologies, 40% of food wastage is being reduced. So that we all know the importance of food and the supply challenges. I think these are the 2 use cases or solutions which we as country have already developed, and probably several of the G20 countries could leverage it. Interestingly, today India is doing vaccine supply, blood shipment using drone technologies. Again, something which we have pioneered. Several states are doing pilots. And some of these technologies, again, bring us a great collaboration opportunity. If you have to do all of this, what's the biggest opportunity for us in India, which again we can take globally? We all know India produces around 1.5 million graduates every year. Most of them work between my company and Rajesh's company and Mohan Reddy Garu's company and several others. But that's our talent pool. What has also been done, and Mohan Garu Reddy has been involved in this program, working very closely with a UNICEF body called Generation Unlimited. And again, both of us are part of it. In India, it's called UA. A significant education report was prepared, and it focuses on a framework called Kindle. Kindle stands for Knowledge and Information Network for Digital and Learning Education. A lot of research has been done, and it focuses on 4 things. First, to create content and curriculum. So that's to train the people. The second is to build the capacities. So again, to create the education, the teachers who can teach all of this. And the third part about it is to create the infrastructure. And I'm pretty sure Ankit could contribute a lot in that. And also then there is a school to work capability development. I think this framework has been developed. What is very interesting is if you look at the work done in India, the government has addressed several elements of it already. So there is a program called Nishta, which takes care of actually building the capacity of the teachers. There is a platform called Swayam, which is a MOOC platform, online university, which any student can access. There is e-Pathshala. So again, building skills is going to be extremely critical. And we have already got a framework. We have already got assets to develop them. And all of this can be taken globally. And lastly, every solution comes with its own threats, and we need to collaborate. When you are in a digital economy, there are obvious 2 threats, and several of my colleagues spoke about it. One, of course, is going to be how globally we manage data. Again, Honorable Minister spoke about it. India has built its own policy. And secondly, every solution we talk about today has AI. And the big debate in AI is how do we address ethical AI? And this is again not something which is unique to India. I think this is something which we need to address globally. So again, I feel we have made significant progress in addition to many areas beyond the financial stack. We always talk about the payments UPI stack, 7.5 billion transactions a month. But I think we have done many other things which can be really leveraged globally. And I think that's the contribution which we all can do collectively to the G20 forum.
Thank you, Ashwin. Clearly, there's quite a lot to be spoken about. And thank you for putting the last mile and agriculture and many of the other elements on the table also. So just quick reflection on what we have heard. What is interesting is, even with a diverse panel, the themes that are there, which could form a framework for global cooperation on digital, seem to be fairly well established. Digital public goods, smart governance, standards, data sharing, digital skills, cybersecurity, resilience. These are the common themes cutting across multiple industries and probably forms the basic pillars for putting together a global cooperation framework. And very clearly, the India experience across its entire diversity, and given India's presidency of the G20, would form a focal point or a foundation on which we could start to develop out a bit more detailing of that framework. Very clearly, business can lead the change. We have the networks, we have the presence, we have the resources to be able to do that. And I do believe that as business leaders, it's our responsibility to do that also. But most critical is that we need to partner with the government and make sure that a digital strategy, while there is a global framework, it needs to be based on local context, and it needs to be localized while there is the common framework to be kept. And therefore that advice and that implementation needs to be local, while the impact will definitely be global. On that note, once again, thank you, my fellow panelists and the audience for listening in to us. Have a great rest of the sessions.
Thank you so much, speakers, for sharing your important inputs. needed for redefining the global digital cooperation. We appreciate them. And I request you to kindly step forward for a group photograph. Thank you so much. We now move to building resilient global value chains, advancing inclusion and integration of all. In recent years, global value chains have provided dynamic opportunities for several countries to diversify their exports and intensify their participation in international markets. Studies reveal that more than 2/3 of global trade occurs through GVCs. Global value chains have increasingly become vast with time and certainly more complex. However, firms, especially SMEs, are not integrated in the global value chains. The deliberations in this session will provide insights on the importance of revamping global trade